Olá, sejam bem-vindos a um Trends News Talks muito especial. Estamos gravando diretamente do Rio Innovation Week. Mais do que uma presença inesperada, é uma presença que nos traz muitas lembranças. Estamos aqui com Orkut Buyukkokten, or something like that.
That was very good.
Perfect. Felipe, fale de onde nós estamos fazendo esse Trends News Talks tão especial.
Perfeito. Primeiro dizer da satisfação de estarmos aqui falando do Hotel Nacional do Rio de Janeiro, um espaço icônico projetado por ninguém menos do que Oscar Niemeyer e com jardins de Burle Marx, que traz muito desse tradicional com a inovação. Então é de vanguarda. Então de quando ele construiu, projetou em 1972, já era futurístico e hoje a gente olha essa estrutura e continua além dos nossos tempos. Então, é uma grande honra. It's a great pleasure to have you here in Trends News.
E pessoal, nós começamos aqui em português, né? Lembrando que o Trends News Talks está fazendo um collab com
Global Smart Gov.
Projeto muito legal do Felipe, que está rodando 6.000 quilômetros aqui pelo Brasil, passou pelo Rectown, Santa Rita do Sapucaí, está no Rio de Janeiro, foi para Minas, Tiradentes, vai chegar até a Bahia, né, Felipe?
Exatamente. Espírito Santo, Bahia e Distrito Federal, a gente conectando o mundo ideal com a realidade dos gestores públicos, da população e buscar novas formas para que a gente gere o impacto de fato na ponta, que é na vida do cidadão.
Okay, let's try to speak in English now. Our Trends News Talks in collab with Global Smart Gov. We have presented Orkut for you, our audience, and we start to talk a little bit with our caipirinhas. That's
Ready?
Saúde.
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 Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
No, it's our. We have so great memories. So we have to start with a history from Rafael.
Okay.
Rafael, how do you meet your wife?
Let's start about the personal. Yeah, do you know that I met my wife in the Facebook, in the Orkut. I'm joking, on the Orkut, at that time. And I would like to start this question about what was the base plan of the Orkut.
I have a very multicultural background. I was born in Turkey. I grew up in Germany.
Yeah.
And then I came to the United States for college. And my whole life, I had to navigate different roles and make new friends and connections from scratch. So at Stanford, I noticed that most freshmen made friends during their first year in their dorms and fraternities.
Yeah.
And those groups of people were the friends they maintained the rest of college, even the rest of their lives. So I noticed that I met most of my friends through friends on friends of friends. So I decided to launch a social network for Stanford students, and that was called Club Nexus. This was in 2001, before anyone had heard of social networking. There was no MySpace, no Friendster, no Facebook, no Orkut.com. And then a year later, when I was about to graduate, I want to connect all the Stanford alumni because I want to keep my friendships and connections from college. So I launched another social network, InCircle.
Mm-hmm.
So after Stanford, I joined Google as a software engineer, and Google had a policy where you could spend 20% of your time pursuing personal projects. So I decided to build a social network to give everyone in the world the opportunity to connect.
But at that time, the social network concept, did it exist?
It didn't exist initially. So the first social network was Club Nexus, which I launched at Stanford.
Yeah.
It was in 2001. But that was only for Stanford students. It was like a small niche community.
Perfect. Yeah.
Then InCircle was for Stanford alumni. And then I want to give everyone in the world the opportunity to connect. And I had friends in Turkey, I had friends in Germany, I had friends in the US, and I want to create a global community, and that's how the journey of Orkut.com started. And then I had a meeting with Eric Schmidt, who was the CEO at the time, and Marissa Meyer, who was head of consumer products and search. And they decided to support a public launch under the name Orkut, because I was the only person who worked on it. I did all the design, all the coding. I even went to data centers and set up the computers. And Orkut was a 5-letter unique word. and I own the domain Orkut.com. So last minute, Google decided to launch it as Orkut.com.
Great.
Okay.
And
Perfect. And so nowadays we know that all social media they have influencers. They got a business. So at that time, it not was the first plan to get the famous. Whoever ever talk about in the social media that somebody can be famous, can be get a business on this, or
So
you think about this that
there is something like incredible that happened in like 2009. So before 2009, we
Yeah.
talked about social networking. We didn't talk about social media. And all networks had a simple feed that was organized content with the latest posts on top to all this one on bottom. It was chronological. But in year 2009, Facebook introduced the like button. And shortly after, Twitter built the retweet button. And then Facebook launched a similar feature, share button. And after that, something went terribly wrong because the likes, shares, and retweets gave people the power to influence others, whether their posts become viral and popular. And from that moment on, authentic and meaningful connections no longer matter. To this day, it was all about user engagement. And if you think about social media today, we call it social media. We don't even call it social networking because it's not about the users. It's not about the communities. It's about influencers. It's about like how many likes you get. It's about how many followers you have. So the entire model of connecting people, empowering communities, and making a better society switch to how can we create more engagement on social media, how can we get people to spend more time on social media, and then it turned into like a game into how can I get more likes, how can I get more followers, how can I become a influencer.
have mentioned it to us that your intention was to build something considering your friends of your friends. But at that time, what was your vision for the future of human interaction online at that time? Because I think it's different now. Your vision at that time, what was the interaction, the future of the interaction online from the people, and what about now? The difference between
That's a good question. So I noticed that like my whole journey through time, when I made like friendships, oftentimes we came together because we had something in common that
Yeah.
brought us together, right? Maybe we are in the same family, we lived in the same neighborhood, we went to the same school, we are like co-workers, or we both like the caipirinhas or like Marvel movies, right? There's always something in common that brings you together. And that's also what inspired me to empower communities on Orkut because Orkut.com was all about communities. It was all about bringing people together around like shared interests. And if I look at society today, the most genuine, authentic conversations oftentimes come from what we share in common, right? Like our shared
like the taste for caipirinhas?
exactly. And I think it's like these conversations that we have one to one. It seems like shared experiences that are a testament to our collective journey. And that's how we connect with one another. And that's how we cultivate and foster communities. And if I look at society or social media today, connection is wired in our human DNA, and connection transcends time and cultures, and connection is the basis of our friendship and relationships and communities. It's also what bonds us together as a society. And there has never been a time in history where we need to connect more because connection is vanishing. And you see that a lot happening because of specifically social media, because social media is prioritizing profit over authentic, meaningful interaction. And if you look at like the mental health crisis, it's the beginning of like 2010,
Yeah.
and that coincides with two things. One is the change in the algorithms that create our feed, right? So instead of being chronological, they start taking into account, likes and retweets and shares. And the second thing is like the mass movement from flip phones, where you can't use social media, to smartphones, where we are on social media all the time. So these two big changes in society ended up turning into like a loneliness epidemic and mental health crisis.
Perfect.
Orkut, how was the challenge to build a team with the innovation and creation a new kind of marketing and business? How was the big challenges to build a team and a globally team as well?
I think like when you're building a team, you always want to hire people who are better than you, right?
Perfect.
That's something I would like always like recommend. And the second thing is like you need to hire people who believe in the vision, right? And the vision with like Orkut and with Hello and with all the social products I built was creating a better community, creating a better society, and that was always the core of our like DNA. And I think like with startups and with like entrepreneurs, it's really important to hire people who truly believe in your vision, and that's how you build a team that lasts. Unfortunately, if you look at like entrepreneurs today or like co-workers today, they are focused on the wrong things, right? So if you look at new hires, they are focused on like stock options and salary, and they keep like switching jobs from company to company because they don't have loyalty to the startups they work for. If you look at like CEOs in this generation, back in my day, it was all about creating a beautiful product. Like if you look at Google, the goal was to organize the world's information. I look at like entrepreneurs today, and it's all about making an exit, becoming a unicorn.
and exit.
And as soon as they have money, you see them with like Lamborghinis and Porsches, and like it has like completely shifted. And a lot of that comes from materialism. And materialism is a result of like technology. It started all the way back with like the radio, television, internet, smartphones, and social media. And we created a culture that focuses on the acquisition of goods and money instead of interpersonal relationships. And if you look at like what really keeps us happy in our lives is the connections we have with one another and the communities we belong to. And it's kind of like sad how the world is like so much more prosperous than ever before. It has left such a big bounty for all of us to share, but at the same time, we feel like we are a lot poorer because we keep comparing ourselves to others on social media, and we are a lot like unhappier because we don't have those like social connections that foster good mental health.
And do you think you have been talking a lot about mental health? Do you have a relation between this generation and these different goals with these so many common problems of mental health?
Yeah, there is a very large change in behavior and mental health between millennials and Gen Z.
Yeah.
And it comes from the fastest adoption of any technology in human history, which is a smartphone and social media, right? And optimism plummeted and depression rose tremendously during the social media and smartphone era. And if you look at Gen Z, they feel nervous, they feel anxious, they are restless, they are depressed. They feel like any single task requires a big effort, which is a sign of mental distress. And how can Gen Z, how can new generations not be depressed in an environment where smartphones and social media is constantly creating an atmosphere of competition and severing from human connections? If you think about it, one of the precursors for a good mental health is relationships, right? It's having like close bonds and connections with people. And loneliness has increased tremendously the past decade because of social media. And there is no wonder that we have a mental health crisis. And it's kind of like interesting, like you mentioned like Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook started with like colleges. They, went from like college to college to college. And at every college they launched, there are more mental health problems in those universities. So you can see like the rise of like mental health issues all the way back from like when they first like started on.
What about now with TikTok?
Oh, TikTok is even more. So people think that it's just like short videos. It's not harmful, but it's extremely harmful, and it's creating a lot of body image issues, especially in like teenage girls, and anxiety and depression like skyrocketed. If you look at TikTok, you see teenagers spending 3 to 7 hours on TikTok, and they are not making friends, they are not creating connections, they don't start their communities, they're just watching mindless content.
Yeah.
And there are numerous studies that show like a teenager who signs up on TikTok, just like a couple of hours later, they get exposed to content that's creating all these like mental health issues.
Yeah.
About the TikTok that you said, at that time, the Orkut, did you is there any algorithm that try to fix the guys, as you said, on the social media, or the algorithm is just to match the subject or the themes, the communities? What about was the tracking algorithm of the Orkut
So
at the time?
with Orkut.com, we never tried to optimize algorithms for profit and engagement. It was all about fostering communities, and we did tremendous amount of research to make the communities work better. If you look at like social media today, there's tremendous amount of machine learning and artificial intelligence that's incorporated into the algorithms. The algorithms create our feeds, what we scroll through day and night, but those algorithms are optimized for engagement.
Yeah.
And interestingly, anger and negative feelings create the most engagement. And it keeps the people on the site longer. So what happened is social media companies, they are actually supporting anger, they're supporting negativity because they know that negative feelings brings more users and more engagement. And more time spent on the platform means that they can show more ads and make more money, and they can also gather more information and use that information for advertising. So obviously, you can measure happiness, you can measure connection, community, quantitatively and qualitatively using computer science and algorithms, but it's just a matter of like, there's a group of people sitting in the boardroom, right? What are they trying to optimize for? Are they trying to optimize for profit? Or are they trying to optimize for like happiness, togetherness, and fostering communities?
Great. Of course, one of the main highlights was the communities. Yeah. And many of us miss them today. What was the secret behind their success?
And why so many success in Brazil?
Yeah, in Brazil was the number
Yeah.
the most popular social
Yeah.
network here was in Brazil.
It's incredible. We are having lunch today with some friends, and I've talked that I will have you here. And now with the waiter, I said, that guy, you know Orkut? Tell him that we have to have back Orkut here. Everybody loves your project.
Thank you. So building like a social product, it's almost like designing a city, right, or a town. When you design a town, you have to create places for people to get together. So
Yeah.
you have like public parks, you have malls, you have like beaches, you have cafes that motivate people to gather and come together, right? With the design of Orkut.com, we architected it so that everything was designed around connecting people and also fostering communities. And when you looked at someone's profile, you would see their friends and you would see the communities. When you looked at the community, you would see the members of the community. So all the design, technical, product decisions we made was around like fostering communities, and that's what at the heart of Orkut.com, and that's why communities work so well. And we also did a lot of research. We did a lot of like A/B testing to make sure that communities work even better. So we made it a lot easier for users to find them. We made them more discoverable. We made a search work like extremely well, and it was just like amazing journey. It was by means of communities. There was a community about like everything, right?
Great.
Yeah. But what about the success in Brazil? Do you have any idea why it happened?
I think like we have a big problem with like product design right now, because usually everyone gets together in a room,
Yeah.
and then they make design decisions. And when
Yeah.
you try to make a decision together, you end up like converging to the middle instead of like being out of the box. And with Orkut.com, a lot of the design decisions they reflected my like personality and my culture. Right, it's all about like togetherness, and it's all about like connection. And if I look at like Brazilians, they are very welcoming, they are super friendly, they are so passionate about friendships.
It makes
I mean,
sense.
they're so passionate even like when they have like a barbecue or play like volleyball on the beach, right? And they're so welcoming. It's so easy to make friends and like talk to people. And I think like when I designed Orkut, it reflected all those values, and it was a very happy place. And a lot of the features you see on Orkut were all about like fostering positivity, like the testimonials, right? It was like all positive. The trusted sexy cool ratings, they were all like positive. So we fostered a platform that was all about the user. It was all about the community. It was all about the connections, and that really resonates with the people of Brazil as well.
Perfect.
How was the in the beginning about the regulation, about the law? Like, for example, you know that a lot of social media they have some issue about the law, about the judge, about the different country laws. But in the beginning, is there any problem, an issue about because no regulation? It's new,
So
a new world, but
yeah,
it was a challenge
when
or
we
was
first
easy?
like launched, it was like really big in like United States and Japan, and then we started growing in countries like Brazil, and it was like huge in Brazil. So one of the first things we did was we opened an office in Sao Paulo
Yeah.
to make sure that we are able to actually like hire people in Brazil, and we can figure out like what's the right set of like product features and changes we should implement to support the communities in Brazil as well. So I think it's like really important to have like presence in the localities where you have your user base.
Yeah, to understand the culture, the regulations, it's
Exactly.
very important.
But when you build this business, you talk about that can be have any problem in other country or you are planning or what the problem with the social media
So-
and you start to figure out how
it,
to
it got banned in some of the more conservative countries like Pakistan, for instance. Like Orkut.com got like
but
banned.
it wasn't the plan of the business plan of the Orkut because it's new nowadays it's easy to say obvious that it but in the beginning
No,
you are the
when
first
we
guy.
launched it, it started off with Googlers. Google had offices all around the world, and they invited their friends.
you're from Google,
and,
yeah.
and that's
You're
how
good.
it spread throughout the entire world. If you ask me, like, did you know it was gonna be big in Brazil? We didn't, and some of these were like a surprise. A really good example is actually Finland. When we launched Orkut.com, it was like huge in Finland, but all users would come, sign up, and then leave right away. And we could not figure out what was happening in Finland. And then one of my friends, he's from Estonia and he speaks Finnish. And he said, "Do you know what Orkut means in Finnish?" I said, "No." And then he told me it means multiple orgasms in a row.
Oh yeah.
So in Finland, everyone was joining Orkut thinking it was like an adult website or a friend finder. And then when they found out it was a social network, they left. So it's kind of like interesting how even like the name can have such an impact on like the audience, right? Or user base.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Felipe?
What are the biggest lessons for the business world that you gained from creating the Orkut and that could inspire entrepreneur?
Good
So that's a very good question. So when I developed and built Orkut, it was just running on like one computer. It was based on Windows architecture. It was using Windows .NET servers with like SQL Server. And before it launched, I said, look, this can handle maybe 200,000 users. It's just on a single machine. And they said, let's launch it and see what happens, right? So we launched Orkut, and soon after we had like millions of users, and one computer was able to handle only like 300,000 users. So we started adding more and more servers, but the Microsoft infrastructure was not scaling. So even went to like Redmond and talked to Microsoft folks to figure out how can we scale this. and you could not scale it with like Windows and Microsoft SQL Server. So we spent a whole year rewriting all of Orkut.com using Windows infrastructure
Yeah.
in Java, C++, using
You had to
MySQL.
rewrite all the
Rewrite
codes.
it, all of it. And this was in the middle where we have like tens of millions of users, right? And during that time, we gave a lot of like errors where it said like bad server, no, not for you. You probably remember those errors. And that's also when we lost like the user base in United States and like countries like Japan. But somehow in Brazil we kept growing and growing, and then in a year we shifted from Windows to Unix,
Unix,
Java, C++,
yeah.
and then we solved our scalability issues.
Great.
So like one of the advice I have is like make sure your software scales. But things are luckily a lot easier right now because we have solutions like Google Cloud, AWS.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's
And-
much more easier these days. Yeah.
And the second lesson we learned was you have to make sure that you design for a global audience. When we first launched, it was only in English, but all the Brazilians were using Orkut.com even though they didn't speak any English, which was like really fascinating. And we had like a lot of communities that were English speaking, and then Brazilians joined and started speaking Portuguese. And like one of the things I would have done differently is adding like more tools to make sure you have like a healthy segregation across like language barriers, and it like features for translation.
Great.
Great.
Talking about technology trends, what are the technology trends that excite you the most right now, especially in the context of social media? How do you think these trends could transform the way we connect and in the coming years?
Oh God. So I wouldn't say excite, I would say unexcite, right? So
Yeah,
what is like the biggest trend right now in technology, right? What are all these like conferences about? So I just went to like the Silicon Valley Brazil conference
yeah,
in the States, and the entire conversation was around AI, right?
yeah, of
AI
course.
is the hottest thing right now because like ChatGPT, for instance, it was like one of the most fastest adopted application ever built. Uh, and then we also have like generative AI. But these tools are actually making the social media experience a lot worse. Let me give you like an example.
Yeah.
If you look at like Google search is a lot worse compared to like 10 years ago. And it's not because the quality of the search is better, the algorithms are still excellent, but the quality of the web has deteriorated. There's like so much misinformation, there's so much fake news, there's so much articles that are written by like bots, there's so much spam. The web is not high quality anymore. And if you look at like ChatGPT, it's a large language model that's trained by mostly data from the web, right? Billions of documents, and you can't trust anything you read on the web. I have a friend of a friend who just had a daughter, and she was saying, I tried to use like ChatGPT to raise my baby, and if I like followed the advice, my baby would be dead by now. Because you can't trust like what ChatGPT is like telling you.
Yeah.
And let's talk about like social media. You probably like noticed all this content on Facebook that is actually AI generated. You see like all these like pictures, all these like stories, all these comments. They look so real. They're almost like indistinguishable, right? And it's AI generated. It's like fake. If you look at Instagram today, there are all these like accounts of like beautiful men and women in like bikinis and swimming shorts that have like thousands of influences, and they are not real.
Yeah.
And they're posting every day. They're responding to comments, and it's not real. So we are coming to a point where we'll be on like social media, and we'll be talking to bots. Who wants to talk to like a computer algorithm when you have the potential to talk into like an actual person? And what's really frightening is that companies actually benefit from that. You know, they benefit from all this like fake engagement. The best example is Twitter. You know, Like Twitter knows that there are so many. I should say X. We all know
Yeah.
it's like X right now.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny. Even like Elon calls it Twitter most of the time. He doesn't call it X.
Yeah.
So on Twitter, there are so many spam bots and fake accounts that generate content and follow people and create engagement, right? And can Twitter get rid of this fake engagement? Of course they can, but it's not in their interest because they're able to show their numbers much higher in terms of engagement, and that helps with the user gauge and also with like the advertisements. They are able to generate more revenue by this fake engagement, and all this like fake engagement on Facebook and Instagram is actually like helping those platforms right now. And since these companies are profit driven, not value driven, they're not gonna care about the users talking to a robot and getting depressed and committing suicide. They're gonna think, oh, we're making more money, so we don't care. So the future is actually like very scary when it comes to like social media. And I'll tell you like one example. I have a friend who has a daughter, and she was spending like 7 hours a day on like TikTok, and she was able to reduce it down to like 3 hours a day, which is still an insane amount of money. And when my friend asks his daughter, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? You know, who do you want to be? She said she wants to be like a nail artist. So there is nothing wrong with painting nails or being a nail artist, but we have to be inspired to do our best. We should be inspired to be a scientist, an engineer, a teacher, like someone who contributes to the community. And we have a generation that's getting inspired by these oftentimes fake influencers. There was an influencer on YouTube that
Yeah.
had an insane amount of followers giving parenting advice. And she was arrested because she was abusing her own children.
Wow.
So our role models right now are these influencers on social media. Instead, it should be our parents, or it should be like our relatives or people who are in society who are actually like making a true impact.
Yeah. And do you see possible solutions for that?
Yes, I believe that the solution comes from technology,
Yeah.
and you solve that problem with social media that is using the power of technology and computer algorithms to optimize for bringing people together and for happiness.
Perfect.
Did you believe in social media by blockchain, decentralized?
So there's a lot of interest in like decentralized social media around like platforms like Mastodon, right? But that concept is really hard in a practical kind of way because there are really a lot of bad agents in the real world who are like malicious. And if you like try to decentralize it, who has the authority to make sure that everything is staying healthy and happy? I mean, that's why we have governments, right? Like, imagine if we didn't have a government in Brazil or the United States, like, what would happen? And I think, like, with social media, you need, like, authority to make sure that everything is healthy and happy. And if you, like, decentralize it, who are you going to trust to give that power to monitor and control social media? That's a big problem.
Look into the future again.
Okay.
What new forms of virtual interaction do you think are yet to be explored?
Virtual interaction. So
Virtual, yeah, talking
So,
about
I
virtual
think, like,
environments, maybe spatial computing.
Metaverse was one
Metaverse.
of the worst ideas ever invented, because like now more than ever we need to connect face to face in
Yeah.
person, and trying to move everyone to virtual reality, it's a really bad idea because it doesn't benefit humanity or society in any way. I think things like AR, augmented reality, and VR are super exciting when it comes to things like entertainment, right? Like it's super entertaining to watch a movie in like 3D, or being immersed in those like video game experiences where you have like a VR headset and you have this amazing uh, real like experience. And those things I definitely support. But if you look at where we are in terms of technology, I think we need at least like 10 more years to come to a place where like VR headsets are affordable.
Yeah.
Because they're like really expensive right now. And
Or maybe brain-computer interfaces.
yeah, and even if you get like the state-of-the-art one, you can only wear it for a couple of hours because then it starts getting really heavy. You start getting headaches, having
Yeah,
eye
yeah.
problems. And you need an insane amount of processing power to support like high definition or 4K dual displays so that it becomes like realistic. And I think like the technology will get there and we'll have like much better VR and AR.
Perfect. Felipe?
I think that your journey is very inspiration and the talk is very nice. Thank you so much.
I would like. What's the possibility that we have Orkut back? A new Orkut, maybe. Or
Decentralize it. Decentralize it.
I've been doing social media for 20 years, right? From Club Nexus to InCircle to Orkut.com and Hello. And well, we did something interesting actually. We looked at how many times Orkut was mentioned in Brazil on Twitter in like 2022. Can you guess how many times?
How many?
Guess
Millions.
how many million?
In Brazil? In Brazil?
Just in Brazil, in 1 year.
In 1 year. 5 million.
5 million.
In Brazil,
In 1 year.
10, 20.
20 million. How about you?
10 million.
So I have a friend who is a colleague at Twitter who works there who did use the Twitter API. It took him like 3 months to get the data. Orkut was mentioned 6.79 billion times.
Billion?
Billion in 2022.
6?
Billion.
Billion.
Wow. So
Definitely there's like a insane amount of demand and nostalgia for it to come back. And it's like a growing conversation.
great.
Your name used to be Orkut?
Yes, you can go to like Orkut.com and you'll see like a letter I wrote and
Oh, great.
and you can sign up for like the new product that's going to launch. You can
Wow. Pay attention. Orkut.com. You can read the letter from Orkut.
And you can also go to hello.com. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
So we have to thank you very, very much for this so kindly conversation. You're special. You are in the heart of all the Brazilians, and we would like to have you back and your project back. It would be a really pleasure.
Obrigado. I love Brazil. I love the people of Brazil. It's so amazing to be back in Brazil and to be in Rio. And thank you so much for this conversation opportunity.
Thank you.
And for the caipirinha.
It's really a great pleasure for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pessoal, fiquem ligados nos nossos canais. Trends News Talks.
E quem gostou, e Global Smart Gov também, ative o sininho, curta, compartilhe também essas informações. E com certeza, acho que essa conversa, a história do Orkut é de fato inspiradora, realizadora e pode servir de inspiração para o seu negócio e para a transformação da vida das pessoas também.
E não se esqueçam, Orkut.com tem uma carta aqui do nosso amigo Orkut falando o que está acontecendo com os projetos do Orkut agora. Fiquem ligados, até uma próxima.
Valeu!